Hey, Blender Bob here. So, Ad Astra, the chase sequence, the rover sequence on the moon, could it be done in Blender? That's the question. So, for this, we need to know how the shot was done, and I will explain it to you. I was in charge of the ground, and you may think, well, the ground is just, it's just a plane with some hills on it and a gray shader. What's the big deal? It's a little bit more complicated than that. And before we continue, we need to know what Blender can do and cannot do. Now, I ask you to calm down. Hardcore Blender fans, calm down, okay? Because the next sequence may offend you, okay? But let me finish all the way to the end, okay? Don't start going like unlike, and giving me thumbs down and screaming in the comments and everything. Let me finish, okay? So we calm down, take deep breath, okay? Okay, let's go. You can do animation in Blender, but it's no Maya. You can do sculpting, but it's no ZBrush. You can do some color correction, but it's no DaVinci Resolve. And you can do some video editing, but again, it's not Resolved, it's not Avid, and it's no Final Cut Pro. You can manage big scenes in Blender, but it's no Katana. You can do compositing, but it's definitively not Nuke. You can create textures in Blender, but it's no Mary and it's no Substance Painter or Substance Designer. You can do some cloth simulation, but it's no Marvelous Designer. Of course, you can do fluids, smoke, and fire, but it's no Houdini. And finally, Cycles is a great renderer, but it's no RenderMan. Hold on, calm down. I told you, deep breath. Because I'm not done yet. Let's continue. So which of these software do we need to do the rover chase in Ad Astra? Do we need Maya? No, we don't. Do we need ZBrush? Nah, Blender can do it. For video editing, DaVinci Resolve is free, that's all you need. Are the scenes so heavy and complex that we need Katana? No, we don't. Compositing, do we need Nuke? Actually, we do. What about Mary for textures? No, we don't. Substance Painter can do this no problem, and it's only $150. Now let's be serious here. If your studio cannot afford $150 for Substance Painter, maybe visual effects is not for you. Do we need Marvelous Designer for this? Absolutely not. Bye. Smoke and debris. Nothing in there that Blender cannot handle. Watch out, Houdini. Blender is coming after you. Do we really need RenderMan for that? Absolutely not. Cycles can do this no problems at all. Bye bye RenderMan. Substance, we just need 1 or 2 licenses. So we just saved an awful lot of money here. DaVinci Resolve is free. Now the big problem is Nuke. So, Nuke. We cannot get rid of Nuke. Blender's compositor is just not powerful enough, and the interface is not efficient. It has these big nodes that you need to connect, and it's too bulky, it's not efficient, and it's actually quite slow. It's no Nuke. Now, are there alternatives that we can use, because Nuke is quite expensive? What about Natron? Natron is free and open source. It's a total ripoff of Nuke. On the left you can see Nuke, on the right you can see Natron. They look exactly the same. It's the same thing, the same design, the same hotkeys. They even copied the colors of the nodes. It's really, really similar. If you know one, you know the other. The problem is, there is no Natron Foundation. They don't have any money, and development kind of stopped on it. It's not super stable. It's very fast though, and it has a lot of features. Not as many as Nuke, but it's pretty complete and it's really, really powerful. Since I own a Nuke license, I never tried Natron on a big project, so I don't know if it can handle it. If you think it can or cannot, please tell me in the comments. I'd like to know. Same thing for Fusion. It comes with DaVinci Resolve, but I never tried it and I don't know anybody who uses it, so I don't know. Maybe it can do the job. Apparently it's pretty good and it's free. After Effects? Yeah, just stick to motion graphics, After Effects. Okay, let's go back to the chase sequence and see how it was done. This is the part where I'm supposed to tell you that I don't own the copyright for this, it belongs to whoever it belongs to, and that this is for education only, and it's under the whatever act thing for the internet, and I don't think it applies to me because it's a US thing and I'm Canadian, so I don't know. Anyways, this is for education purposes only, alright? Because you're gonna learn how to do these shots. That was such a difficult sequence because there are so many things involved, and some of the shots are full CG, others are not, and you just can't tell. It's really hard to do this. It's way much more complicated than you think it is. It took months to do. It's not something you can do like, in a few weeks and think, we're gonna be done with it. Think about it. You have the reflections in the helmet. You have some shots that have been shot in the desert with a real rover, actually many rovers, and then you have some shots that were filmed in green screen in a studio, and we have to combine all this together to make it work. And there are tons and tons of changes that never stop. Make this hill a little bit bigger, make this one smaller, move this 2 pixels to the left, 2 pixels to the right, bring it back the way it was before, render it again. It just never stops! I was going insane at the end of this project. I was like, no more, I can't take it anymore. I would wake up in the middle of the night all sweaty, having nightmares on moon grounds, and oh my god. Okay, just kidding, I was just trying to fill up the time until I finished the sequence and it's done. So this is how it was set up. We had our little rover here that was animated on a huge plane that represents the ground. It's a long strip like this and it's moving, and now they're talking and blah blah blah. The Russians are coming, they're fighting, and then they arrive here, there's an accident in this place, and then they fall a 300 feet crater and nobody's hurt, everybody's fine because it's Brad Pitt. All the cameras were in the same scene, so I could switch from one to another, and they were all physically at the right place in space. This way we would have a perfect continuity from one shot to another. For the shots that were filmed in a desert, the tracking department would give me a low-res ground and I would need to integrate it with my ground. So all the dense patches you see here represents grounds that were given to me by the tracking department. So once I was done with my geometry, and every time I made a change, even if it was something very simple, move a hill from 2 pixels to the left, didn't matter, I would need to export my geometry to a Houdini guy who would moonerize my geometry. That would recreate a new one and would create procedural shaders to create all the craters and everything and all the debris. And it was a really cool concept and very powerful, but at the end it turned out to be a very complicated method and it took a very long time. It was like 2 to 3 hours every time I made a change, so it was done overnight. So during the day I would do some changes, send it at the end of the day, he would process it, and then the next day we could see the results. So it was really long and really, cumbersome to do. And we did another project right after this one that was also on the moon, but we didn't use the same process because it turned out it wasn't as efficient as we expected. But the concept was great though. This was the most difficult one for me because tracking couldn't give me a good geometry for the ground, and the only thing that's real in this plate is this area. Everything else is CG. And there wasn't a lot of references to create a ground, and I had to, manually track the geometry and try to make it fit. It was a really difficult job. All the close-up shots were done in a studio. That means we had to create reflections in the helmets for the ground. So we had to track all the helmets, make them reflective, and render another pass just for the helmets. Sometimes we even needed to render the entire rover so we can see the reflection in the helmets. And this is something we had to do for every close-up shot to add the reflections on all the helmets. Another desert shot here where we only kept this part of the real plate and everything else is CG. Now, because it's shot in a desert and the ground was red, it had to be rotoed and color corrected so that we can get a gray ground instead. This is a tracking nightmare because the camera moves too much and everything is blurry. I'm not too sure about this one, but I think the debris are real. Maybe they added some more to enhance them. I don't know, I worked on this like 2 years ago or something. These are full CG shots, and when you reach that level of realism, you can ask yourself, why bother filming in the desert when you can do it all CG? And when an object goes straight for the camera, it's obviously CG. Nobody got hurt during the filming of this shot because everything is full CG. Look at the beautiful specular on the solar panel. It's really well done. Congratulations to the shading team and the compositing team. This is real. They actually crashed a rover into a concrete pylon. And you have the reflection in the helmet too, which is pretty cool. I don't know how it was done. I don't know if they filmed from another point of view and just mapped it on the helmet or what. I don't know. If I remember correctly, this is also the real thing, but they added some parts. The parts that goes in our face, they are not real. Full CG shot, look how the wheels flatten the ground as it drifts. It's really cool, really well done. And that's a studio shot, green screen shot, and they actually spin the rover. Okay, let's try some stuff in Blender. We will need a displacement map to make some tests, and I found this one on the internet. It is huge. It is 46K by 15. This is ridiculously big. Just to show you how big it is, This is a 4K image, and the 4K texture is considered as quite big. Now look at the size of this beast. So first I tried it in the industry-leading software. I won't say what it is. Maya! Sorry. And I got this really familiar box. Now if I had to press send report every time I see this, my finger would hurt. Now this is that same crazy 46 by 15K texture in Blender, and look at this, it's applied as a displacement map and it's like live. It's crazy fast, it's unbelievable. I cannot believe how fast it is. Look at this, and I didn't accelerate the clip. This is live, this is what's going on. And if I change the value here, change it to whatever, make it smaller, make it bigger, and pow! Look at this, it's so amazing. Let's connect the same texture and the color and it's immediate, you see? Wow. Okay, let's try to add a brightness contrast to the texture because, you know, the craters dark like this doesn't make any sense. So let's try something, just change the contrast. We just want to see. We're just playing here, we're having fun, okay? So yeah, there you see, that's better. And you see the result live. This is, for me, it's so amazing. Hey, you know what? Let's try render full 2K resolution with motion blur. Render image. Now when you render something this, you want to make sure you use persistent image. You can see here, this is really important, otherwise it's going to reload the textures every time you render, and this is a 1.5 gigabyte texture. It's huge, it's enormous, so it's going to take a while. You don't want this to do it every time. And there we go, it's rendering. Look at this, it's crazy fast. It's noiseless, it's beautiful, super motion blur, and it was finished in about it's still, what is it? It's denoising, they're now in 40, and it's done. It took 33 seconds for the frame. There's absolutely no way RenderMan would render this that fast. So what I'm doing here is I split into my displacement texture and I put a brightness contrast node just to change it, make it less contrasty, so I will have less displacement when I use it. And I use a mix RGB node to mix it with the original right here. I also created an empty texture that I plugged into the factor. So this way I will be able to paint my displacement map, actually paint between the high value displacement map and the low value displacement map. So I just select it, I go into the texture mode and I paint, and look what happens. I can switch from the high value and low value. Okay, maybe my brush is too strong here. I'll reduce it, make it a little bit bigger, softer. And here we go, and now you see if I want more creators at one place, I can just paint it and it's live. Now I have to tell you that this is done in Eevee, not in cycles, because cycles would not update in real time, but once you're done you just switch to cycles and it's gonna work. I also had to use a half resolution texture for the displacement map, otherwise Blender would crash because it's kind of asking a lot, but still it's a 23.7K texture. Anyways, once it's done, I can revert the half res texture to the full res texture and it's gonna render just fine. And I can guarantee you that if anybody from the Look Dev department worked on that show, look at this, they will think, how come we didn't have that tool when we did it? Because you didn't use Blender. So in conclusion, absolutely yes, the entire sequence could be done in Blender, and actually all the shots we did for Ad Astra could be done in Blender. I don't see any reasons why it could not. You just need to look at websites like Blender Nation that shows artists of the weeks, and you can see the incredible jobs that can be done with Blender, and we just need to see more of this in the VFX industry, and it's coming, and I'm glad it's coming. So Blender, yes, you can do a lot of good stuff for the film industry, and I hope more companies will switch to Blender and move on and do stuff for way cheaper for the same quality. Bye. Hey, how come you haven't subscribed yet?